Welcome to Deck Analysis and Testing. Today we're looking at Machina. Machina is an Earth Machine deck previously consisting of one notable boss monster. Machina Fortress is an okay boss monster that is sometimes used in other machine decks as a free summon that also sends monsters from your hand to the graveyard. Until now, Machina got a whole new wave of support, including new searchers and extenders, and most importantly, a new boss monster that's very good. The deck is based around pitching machines from your hand to summon high-level machines, and popping your own monsters to use your effects. And because Citadel and Fortress summon themselves from the graveyard, this deck is also very good in the grind game. Let's have a look at the cards. First is our new boss monster, Machina Citadel. This card cannot be normal summoned or set and must be special summoned by a card effect, and also it has a quick effect to target a machine monster you control and destroy it and any of your opponent's monsters that has a equal or lower attack than that monster. And also, if a face-up Earth Machine monster is destroyed by battle or card effect, you can special summon this card from your graveyard. This is a really good effect, so even if your opponent destroys it, you can always just summon it back as soon as any of your monsters gets destroyed by battle or when they pop themselves. Next is one copy of Scrap Recycler, because unfortunately, both Citadel and Recycler are at free, so we can only play one copy of this card. This card can send one machine monster from your deck to the graveyard. You will usually be sending a Citadel, and this is kind of a way of summoning Citadel from your deck, because you can send Citadel and then attack one of your opponent's monsters with a higher attack. So you can crash this card into that, and then special summon your Citadel when your Scrap Recycler gets destroyed by battle. Next is 3 copies of Machina Megaform. This card is a level 8 monster, which is important, and it has an effect to attribute itself to special summon a Machina monster from your hand or deck, except for itself. And also, if a face-up Machina Fortress is destroyed and sent to your graveyard, you can banish it and special summon this card from your graveyard. But you can only use these 2 effects once per turn, and you can only choose one of them to use per turn. You'll just only be using the first effect because we aren't actually playing Fortress in this free-to-play version, because Fortress is an ultra rare from another box, so we're not playing that card. So we're just using this as a way to get Citadel from our deck. It's important that it's level 8 because we can actually summon this card using other cards like Irradiator and Aerator to actually summon this card and then immediately tribute itself to summon the Citadel from our deck. So basically this is just more copies of Citadel, because if you don't draw this card, you can still make a Megaform on field and then use its effect to grab the Citadel from your deck. Next are the 3 summons. Machina Irradiator has the effect of discarding one other Machina monster to summon this card from your hand, and also you can target one machine monster you control and special summon from your graveyard one Machina monster with a different name and equal or lower level than that monster, and then destroy that targeted monster. So what you do usually is you have a Irradiator and a Megaform in your hand, you discard the Megaform to summon the Irradiator, use the effect of Irradiator, pop itself, and then summon the Megaform from your graveyard, and then tribute the Megaform to summon your Citadel from your deck, and that is a 2-card combo that summons Citadel without using your normal summon. And obviously for any 2-card combos, you can just grab both of them with your search spell, because the search spell adds 2 Machinas from your deck, so you can always do this 2-card combo quite consistently, especially in the expensive version where you can have more copies of the search spell. Next is 3 copies of Aerator. This is our second rank level 8 monster that is a free summon. It also has the same effect to discard one other Machina monster to special summon this card from your hand, and instead of summoning from your graveyard, this card summons from your deck, but you can only use this effect during your opponent's turn as a quick effect. Next is 3 copies of a Machina Soldier. When this card is a normal summoned while you control no other monsters, you can special summon a Machina monster from your hand except for itself. This is a way to actually get your Citadel to your field if you have it in your hand, or you can just special summon a Megaform from your hand and then tribute itself to summon the Citadel from your deck that way as well. Next is 1 copy of Machina Redeployment. This is probably this is a really good search spell, similar to the Ulsatic search spell. It allows you to discard one card and then search 2 monsters at once. And if you discard a Machina card, you can also search any Machina card instead of only monsters. And the non-monster Machina card that we're going to search is going to be Discard. Machina Defense Perimeter Discard is a really good continuous spell that actually allows you to gain back a lot of the lost advantage that you have by discarding all the stuff from your hand. Because while you control a level 7 or higher machine monster, your opponent cannot attack level 6 or lower machine monsters. You can triple attacks and also cannot target them for card effects. But that is not the most usable effect of this card. The most useful one is the second one, which is when a face-up machine monster you control is destroyed by battle or card effect, you can recycle one machine monster from your graveyard and add it back to your hand. And you will activate this effect a lot of the times because your Citadel pops itself, your level 8 extenders pop themselves, so there are plenty of ways to trigger this effect both in your turn and your opponent's turn as well. And finally, we have 3 copies of Horror House because it's a really good card. And for the extra deck, we don't actually use the extra deck that much, so we're just playing generic links. And for the skill, we're playing Baggy Sleeve because of how many high-level monsters we're actually playing in this deck. If your level 7 or higher monster is destroyed by battle, you can draw 2 cards in your next draw phase. So if you just end on any one of the level 8 extenders on field, and if they get destroyed by your opponent's monsters by battle, you can just draw 2 cards in your next turn and hopefully draw into something good that could win you the game. Let's have a look at the expensive version where we can finally use 3 copies of a Machina Fortress. This is a really good card, even if it's not the best card anymore. It still allows us to get a free summon by discarding machine monsters which total levels equal 8 or more, and you can special summon this card from your hand or from your graveyard. And also, if this card is destroyed by battle, you can destroy a card your opponent controls, and before resolving an opponent's monster effect that targets this face-up card, you can just look at your opponent's hand and discard 1 card from their hand. This effect is crazy! If you're able to proc it, obviously, because there are plenty of ways to actually get rid of this card without triggering the discard effect. Usually your opponent will be able to use some kind of spell or trap to get rid of this card, which bypasses both effects. But if your opponent doesn't really have a way to get rid of this card without going to battle or without using a monster effect, these 2 effects will be really annoying for your opponent. And as you can see, we're actually playing a lot less Machinas and playing a lot more other stuff. And most notably is the Trickstar engine, because we don't actually need our normal summon in Machinas. I mean, you could play Gear Frame, which is a normal summon that Machinas use, but we don't really need Gear Frame. We can just use something like a Redeployment to add a bunch of Machinas to our hand and summon the Citadel with the 2-card combo that I talked about without actually using your normal summon. You can always use a Redeployment, which we have 3 copies of, to add Megaform and a Radiator to your hand and make your Citadel without even using your normal summon. So instead, we're going to use our normal summons on the Trickstar things. Candina is a pretty good normal summon because when it does, you add a Trickstar card from your deck to your hand. You will be adding your field spell, which allows you to add another Trickstar monster from your deck to your hand. You can add another copy of Candina, or you can add a copy of Corobane. Corobane plus Candina is lethal because you also deal 100 damage extra for every direct attack you do because of Light Stage. So even though the attacks only add up to 38, you still deal exactly 4,000 damage because of your field spell, dealing an additional 200 every time you inflict battle damage. But the real reason we play this engine is because of the field spell's effect to lock your opponent's back row. So if you open with Candina, you actually have access to a way to stop your opponent from activating their back row, or at least bait them from using their back rows before you actually make your Machina monsters. And because we're using the Trickstar engine, we also have access to Crimson Heart, which allows us to draw 2 cards because we use the Holy Angel Trick skill, which allows us to gain life points, and use the bonus effect of the Crimson Heart to draw 2 cards if we go first. And we're also playing a couple copies of Book of Moon and Compose as the staple traps and spells that we are going to use, and for the extra deck, we're just playing better links in general. Okay, in our first game we are going second. This deck does have plays going both first and second because of how Citadel works. So let's see what we can do when we go second. Obviously when we go second we don't actually have a way to use our Horror House, but honestly with the hand that we have it's honestly probably fine. Our opponent is playing Ancient Warriors, which is really good for our deck because that means they don't actually have a lot of back row that could stop us. So we could just safely put out our monsters and only worry about his quick effects on his monsters. Which he has quite a bit. He has the like 2, which bounces a monster, and Kong, which actually negates spells and traps. Which is fine because we don't actually use any spells and traps in this game. We're going to summon the Machina Soldier, and then summon the Citadel. He's going to try to bounce it. We can chain its effect to wipe our opponent's monsters, and then we're going to summon the Irradiator to pop itself and summon back a Soldier, and then trigger the effect of Citadel to summon itself back, and that is enough for lethal. Okay, in our second game, now that we have a game going second, let's see what this deck can do going first. Our opponent is playing Shadows, which doesn't really have an out to Citadel, as you will be able to see later. We also open with Soldier plus Citadel, which is really nice, and we also have a Horror House for whatever our opponent has. Our opponent will be link summoning an Artemis just to get themselves a light monster, and they're going to try to fusion summon. We're going to pop the Link monster, and that whiffs the fusion spell because they don't have enough monsters to actually make their fusion monster. We're going to try to go to battle, but during the main phase, he is going to use the trap that he just drew, and still be able to make the construct. The construct will send a Wendy to the graveyard, and then set a dragon to his field. We're going to use Citadel's effect during our main phase to pop the fusion, and that also triggers his fusion monsters effect, but that is okay. We're going to also use the effect of the continuous spell to add it back to Soldier, and then normal summon Soldier because it's still our main phase, and make the Air Raider from my hand. Our opponent will activate the Sinister Shadow Games to send both a Hedgehog and flip the Shadow Dragon face up, which allows him to bounce a monster back to the hand. He actually can't bounce a level 4 monster because of the continuous spell that prevents him from targeting low-level monsters that we have with card effects, so he is forced to bounce the high-level one. He's going to make the Wind Shadow because that's probably the only thing he could make, and then he's going to use the effect of Wendy to set a monster face down, and then use Hound's effect, and he's actually he actually doesn't want to pop my monster because if he does actually get to summon the Citadel back to my field. But little does he know it still triggers when he attacks my monster by battle, so even if he attacks my monster, I still get to summon back the Citadel. And I just get to use its effect during my own main phase to wipe all of his monsters, and he realizes he can't actually out my Citadel, and he is just going to disconnect. Okay, let's have a look at the expensive version. Our opponent is also playing Shadows, I think. And we all know how that goes. We are also playing a bit of Trickstar stuff as well, so let's see if those cards will help us play through our opponent's turn 1 board. Because our opponent is actually going first this time, we will have to have a way to actually play through his window. But thankfully he doesn't have any back row, so at least we don't have to worry about that. But even if he does, we still have the field spell to contest any set back row that he has. But we're going to add a Korobane. We probably shouldn't add a Korobane. We should probably just add another Candina, but whatever, it's also honestly fine. We're going to use the Machina Fortress to summon itself back and just attack over the window by battle. and attack his set monster as well. He's going to be able to grab a Shadow of Fusion, which doesn't really do a whole lot because we don't have an extra deck monster on field. He's going to use his Super Poly to use my Light Monster and his Shadow to make the construct, and also trigger both his constructs on the Summon effect and the Falco's effect when it is sent to the graveyard. And then he's going to send a Wendy and be able to set another monster face down, and he doesn't really want to attack my Fortress because if he does, I get to summon back the Citadel, so he's just going to end turn, which is nice for us. We're going to attack his set monsters. And even if he bounces back one of our cards, it is honestly not that big of a deal. And as you can see, Shadows don't actually have a good out to Machina Citadel, which we will be able to summon right now, because every time Construct attacks a monster, it just destroys it without even going to battle, and that triggers the effect of Citadel to summon itself back and then just wipe everything that they have. And we're going to do that and pop our own Citadel to wipe all of our opponent's monsters, except for the one that's face down, because obviously we can't destroy that monster because it's face down. We're going to link summon an Underclock Taker because we can, and we need some free zones on field, and because we sent a Fortress to the graveyard, we can summon back the Mega Form, and then now that we have an extra zone, we can actually make a Fortress using the Irradiator, and that triggers the effect of a Citadel as well, which will be able to summon itself from the graveyard as well. And now we can link summon Nightmare Unicorn and not have to worry about the set card's effects at all. And we're just going to attack, which will be enough for lethal. Good game.